Charles Bukowski, the legendary poet of the underground, kicks back with his friend Georgia Peckham-Krellner, a drink likely within reach, the air thick with cigarette smoke and raw conversation. It's 1970, an era of rebellion and recklessness, and Bukowski is in his element, partying, laughing, and living as only he could. Jerry Lee Lewis and his wife, Sean Lewis, attend a pre-Grammy party at the historic Biltmore Hotel, their smiles captured in a fleeting moment of glamour. Just months later, on August 24, tragedy struck. Sean was found dead in her bed, merely 2 days after confiding in her mother about plans to file for divorce. Her sudden passing remains shrouded in mystery, adding yet another dark chapter to the tumultuous life of the killer. Manchester United's Bobby Charlton, injured and bandaged, rests in a hospital bed following the Munich air disaster, which occurred on this day in 1958. The crash devastated the football world. On board were 44 people, including players, staff, and journalists. 20 perished at the scene, while 3 more succumbed to their injuries in the days and weeks that followed. Charlton, one of the Busby Babes, would recover and go on to define an era for both Manchester United and England, forever carrying the memory of that fateful day. A haunting relic of history, the pair of glasses that John Lennon was wearing at the time of his assassination in 1980. The former Beatle, a musical icon and advocate for peace, was shot outside the Dakota Building in New York City, marking one of the most tragic moments in music history. The blood-stained glasses remain a powerful symbol of both his life and his untimely death. A group of Victorian holidaymakers, dressed in the elegant fashion of the era, rest after a wine-fueled picnic inside an ancient Egyptian temple in 1898. With the grandeur of towering stone columns surrounding them, the travelers, perhaps overwhelmed by the heat and indulgence, have drifted into a midday slumber. A fascinating glimpse into the leisurely pursuits of 19th-century tourists, blending cultural exploration with unapologetic relaxation. Across the years of World War I and World War II, countless soldiers embraced their loved ones one last time before marching off into the unknown. Train stations, docks, and city streets became silent witnesses to tearful goodbyes, wives clinging to husbands, mothers holding on to sons, children grasping their fathers' hands, desperate to make the moment last. Some would return, forever changed. Others would never come home. These poignant farewells, frozen in time through photographs and memory, remain a haunting testament to the human cost of war, the sacrifice, the love, and the unbearable weight of parting. A charming glimpse into mid-century dining culture, the Spaghetti Girls of the 1950s capture a moment of pure joy and indulgence. Whether it's young women playfully twirling pasta around their forks in a cozy Italian restaurant or laughing as they slurp up long strands of spaghetti, these images evoke a sense of nostalgia. The era was marked by a rise in Italian-American cuisine across the U.S., making spaghetti a beloved staple. These candid snapshots reflect a time of simple pleasures, youthful energy, and the universal love for a good plate of pasta. A snapshot of post-war American car culture, Hodak Motor Sales in Kankakee, Illinois, stood as a testament to the booming automobile industry of the 1950s. With its sleek showroom and gleaming vehicles lined up, the dealership represented the era of chrome, tail fins, and the American dream on 4 wheels. Families and young professionals alike flocked to places like Hodak's, eager to embrace the newfound freedom of the open road. A time when owning a car wasn't just transportation, it was a symbol of success and adventure. In this light-hearted scene from Cornwall, England, 1969, 2 young girls are captured galloping full speed on the backs of sheep, turning a quiet countryside moment into an impromptu race. With their hair flowing in the wind and expressions of pure joy, the girls embraced the carefree spirit of childhood, while their woolly steeds charged forward across the field. This nostalgic image reflects a time of simpler pleasures, unstructured play, and the adventurous imagination of youth, where even farm animals could become racehorses for an afternoon. In this evocative image from 1890s Ireland, a woman sits by her traditional spinning wheel, skillfully transforming raw wool into thread. The scene captures a time when hand spinning was a cornerstone of rural life, deeply woven into the fabric of Irish tradition. With focused hands and a steady rhythm, she carries on a craft passed down through generations, one that would soon fade with the rise of industrialization. A quiet moment of labor, resilience, and heritage, frozen in time. In this fascinating glimpse into the early days of electric vehicles, a car is seen being charged in 1905, a reminder that the concept of electric transportation is far older than many realize. At the dawn of the 20th century, electric cars competed with gasoline and steam-powered vehicles, offering a quieter and cleaner alternative. Charging stations, though rare, did exist, catering to a small but growing number of electric car owners, many of whom were urban dwellers with access to electricity at home. While internal combustion engines eventually dominated the roads, this image serves as a remarkable foreshadowing of the modern EV revolution, proving that innovation often comes full circle. A classic scene of 1960s Italy, where a family embarks on their summer holiday in a Fiat 500, one of the most beloved cars in Italian history. With luggage strapped to the roof and excitement in the air, this image perfectly captures the spirit of the post-war economic boom, when many Italians could finally afford vacations and small, practical cars like the iconic Fiat 500. Designed for efficiency and affordability, the Fiat 500 became a symbol of freedom, taking families from bustling cities to the scenic coastlines of the Mediterranean. A true snapshot of nostalgia, when the journey was just as important as the destination. A glimpse into turn-of-the-century Brighton, where J.W. Waldron Smith and Bicycle Shop stood as a testament to the changing times. During this era, bicycles were revolutionizing personal transportation, offering freedom of movement to the working and middle classes. Shops like Waldron's were essential hubs, not only for selling and repairing bicycles but also for forging metalwork and tools, bridging the gap between the old world of blacksmithing and the modern age of mechanized transport. This image captures the Victorian entrepreneurial spirit, where craftsmanship and innovation thrived in small, independent businesses across Britain. Before alarm clocks became common, knocker-uppers were the unsung heroes of the working class, ensuring people woke up in time for their shifts. While most used long poles to tap on windows, Mary Smith took a more creative approach. She shot dried peas through a pea shooter, expertly hitting the glass of her clients' windows without waking the whole street. This unique profession thrived in industrial-era Britain, especially in bustling areas like London's East End, where early risers, from factory workers to dock laborers, relied on their knocker-upper to start the day. Before electric streetlights illuminated the city of light, lamplighters like this gentleman were a familiar sight in the streets of Paris. With a long pole and a steady hand, he carefully lights a gas-powered street lamp, ensuring the city remains aglow after sunset. By the early 20th century, Paris was transitioning to electric lights, making this moment a fleeting glimpse of a bygone era. In the gritty streets of Glasgow, where gang violence and razor-wielding attackers were a harsh reality, this plainclothes officer finds himself in a split-second battle for survival. Captured mid-action, the officer blocks the incoming razor slash, showcasing both skill and instinct in the face of danger. The 1970s were a turbulent time for Glasgow's law enforcement, as they fought to curb the city's notorious gang culture and street crime. A legend in the skies, South African fighter pilot Adolf "Sailor" Malin made his name during World War II, downing 35 Nazi aircraft and leading Britain's No. 74 Squadron, the Tigers. But after the war, his battle shifted from the air to the streets, against racial injustice. Here, in 1952, Malin is seen hoisted by fellow veterans at one of the earliest major anti-apartheid protests. He had become a leading figure in the Torch Commando, a movement of white ex-servicemen standing against the newly entrenched apartheid policies of the South African government. His wartime motto, "Fight to the finish," took on new meaning in his fight for democracy and equality in his homeland. This striking image shows bullet-riddled windows of the Nigerian presidential Mercedes, marking the scene where General Murtala Muhammad, Nigeria's military head of state, was assassinated in a violent coup attempt. Muhammad, a charismatic and reform-driven leader, had been in power for just 200 days before his convoy was ambushed in Lagos. The attack, led by Lieutenant Colonel Buka Suka Dimka, saw his vehicle riddled with gunfire, killing him on the spot. His sudden assassination ignited suspicions of CIA involvement, triggering widespread anti-American protests by Nigerian students and causing diplomatic tensions between Nigeria and the United States. Despite the coup attempt, the government swiftly regained control, and Olusegun Obasanjo took over, continuing Muhammad's transition plan toward civilian rule. This historic snapshot captures Liberty Avenue in downtown Pittsburgh as it appeared in 1908, offering a glimpse into the city's bustling past. The view faces west, looking down Liberty Avenue towards 7th Avenue, with early streetcars, horse-drawn carriages, and pedestrians filling the streets. At the time, Pittsburgh was a rapidly growing industrial hub, powered by steel, coal, and manufacturing. The city's architecture reflected its prosperity, with grand buildings, ornate facades, and bustling storefronts lining the avenue. This image, preserved by the Library of Congress, is a window into early 20th century urban life, where Pittsburgh's transformation into the Steel City was well underway. Two German women, their faces etched with defeat and despair, sit amid the shattered remains of Cologne, a city devastated by war. This haunting image, captured by Lee Miller in March 1945, reflects the stark aftermath of relentless Allied bombing and the crumbling of the Third Reich. Cologne, once a vibrant city, was left in ruins by years of aerial bombardment. The iconic Cologne Cathedral, though damaged, still stood, an enduring symbol of resilience amidst destruction. This photograph is more than just a wartime scene, it's a human story, a moment of reckoning in the final months of World War II. On Strassmayer Square in Prague, 1945, a group of ethnic Germans, evicted from their homes, wait in uncertainty to be deported to Allied-occupied Germany. Their belongings are bundled together, their faces marked with a mix of resignation, sorrow, and fear. As World War II came to an end, millions of ethnic Germans across Central and Eastern Europe were forcibly displaced under the Beneš Decrees and Potsdam Agreement. In Czechoslovakia alone, approximately 3 million Sudeten Germans were expelled, accused of collaboration with the Nazi regime. This photograph captures a tumultuous chapter of post-war history, one of revenge, retribution, and forced migration, as Europe sought to rebuild itself from the ruins of war. February 7, 1904, a day etched in Baltimore's history. The fire is believed to have started when a discarded cigarette butt fell through the pavement into the basement of the John E. Hurst and Company. building, now located on Redwood Street. Fueled by strong winds, the inferno raged for over 30 hours, consuming more than 70 city blocks and over 1,000 buildings. Firefighters from neighboring cities rushed to help, but incompatible hose connections made their efforts nearly impossible. By the evening of February 8, the flames were finally extinguished, leaving behind a devastated landscape. But from the ashes, Baltimore rebuilt itself stronger than ever, improving its infrastructure, developing a modern sewer system, and stepping boldly into the 20th century. Dr. Norman Bethune, a Canadian physician, is seen performing surgery on an injured soldier in the Song Yen Co Model Ward, located in Wutai. This moment, captured between 1938 and 1939 by the renowned Chinese war photographer Xia Fei, highlights Bethune's unwavering dedication to frontline medical care during the Second Sino-Japanese War. Bethune played a pivotal role in modernizing battlefield medicine, pioneering mobile blood transfusions and training Chinese medics under the 8th Route Army. His selfless work ultimately cost him his life in 1939, but his legacy endures in both China and Canada. Captured by Margaret Burke-White in May 1937, this striking image shows Senator Robert Reynolds of North Carolina playfully aiming a slingshot, which he dubbed the Alien Eradicator, in his office. Reynolds, known for his staunch isolationist views and controversial rhetoric, was a vocal critic of increased immigration during the 1930s. His political stance often aligned with America First policies, advocating against foreign entanglements in the years leading up to World War II. While the slingshot may seem like a harmless prop, the symbolism behind it reflects the tense political climate of the era, where debates over immigration, nationalism, and international involvement shaped American discourse. In March 1888, one of the most devastating blizzards in U.S. history struck the East Coast, burying New York City under a thick blanket of snow. The storm, later known as the Great Blizzard of 1888, brought life in the bustling metropolis to a standstill. With snowdrifts reaching up to 50 feet, 15 meters, and winds howling at speeds of 45 miles per hour, 72 kilometers per hour, the storm paralyzed transportation, commerce, and daily life. Elevated trains, streetcars, and horse-drawn carriages were immobilized, forcing New Yorkers to navigate the city on foot, trudging through towering snowbanks. The blizzard ultimately led to major infrastructure improvements, including the decision to move telegraph and electrical wires underground and the expansion of the subway system, forever altering the city's development. Captured by Alain Le Garçmer in 1979, this evocative image showcases a scene from rural Poland, where traditional horse-drawn carts remained a common mode of transport, even as the country modernized. Against the backdrop of socialist-era Poland, where industry and urbanization surged, life in the countryside retained its old-world charm. These carts, often used for farm work, travel, and trade, were a testament to the resilience and traditions of Polish rural communities. A moment frozen in time, where history and progress coexisted on the same road. In this historic 1941 photograph, men patrol the border of the self-declared state of Jefferson, a short-lived movement by Southern Oregon and Northern California counties seeking independence from their respective states. Frustrated by neglected infrastructure and lack of political representation, residents of the region staged a secessionist movement, blocking roads and even declaring a governor of Jefferson. Their motto: "Our roads are not fit for pigs, so they're not fit for statehood." Though the movement gained traction, it was halted by the attack on Pearl Harbor, as the U.S. turned its attention to World War II. While the state of Jefferson never became official, its independent spirit remains a deep part of local identity even today. In this stark wartime image, a Soviet soldier finds himself completely surrounded by Finnish troops during the continuation war in the Kiestinki region, November 1941. The battle in this northern sector was part of Germany's Operation Barbarossa, in which Finland, seeking to regain lost territories from the Winter War, 1939–40, fought alongside Nazi Germany against the Soviet Union. The terrain was harsh, the fighting was brutal, and many soldiers on both sides endured extreme cold and exhaustion. Despite early Finnish advances, the Red Army eventually halted their offensive in late 1941, forcing the front line into a static war of attrition until 1944. Captured by the legendary Lee Miller, this striking wartime photograph encapsulates the devastation of the Blitz, the relentless German bombing campaign against London and other British cities during World War II. Amidst the wreckage, a Broadwood piano stands eerily intact, a stark contrast to the destruction surrounding it. The image is a poignant reminder of ordinary life abruptly shattered by war, where a once beloved instrument, a symbol of culture and domestic tranquility, now sits in ruin. Lee Miller, a war photographer and photojournalist, was known for her ability to capture raw emotion and haunting beauty in times of conflict. This image remains a powerful testament to the resilience of Londoners during one of the city's darkest hours. During the Spanish-American War of 1898, the United States allied with Cuban revolutionaries in their long struggle for independence from Spanish rule. In this rare and powerful image, an African-American Buffalo soldier of the U.S. Army is seen sharing a friendly conversation with a Cuban Liberation Army fighter. The Buffalo Soldiers, originally formed as all-black regiments after the American Civil War, played a crucial role in the U.S. military. During the Cuban campaign, they fought bravely in battles such as San Juan Hill, alongside Theodore Roosevelt's Rough Riders. For many of these soldiers, the war held deep meaning, not only as a fight against Imperial Spain but also as a test of their own freedom and equality in a segregated America. Their service, often overlooked, remains a vital chapter in both U.S. and Cuban history. This rare photograph, taken in March 1914, captures a classroom scene in German East Africa, modern-day Vuga, Tanzania, just months before World War I would reshape the region. During the German colonial rule, 1885 to 1918, schools like this were established to provide basic education, often with a focus on German language, Christianity, and vocational training. However, access to education was limited, and most students were taught with the aim of serving the colonial administration. The outbreak of World War I later disrupted colonial governance, and after the war, Germany lost control of East Africa to British rule, transforming the region's educational and political landscape. This historic group photo captures officers of the Northeast Anti-Japanese United Army, NAJUA, a mixed Chinese-Korean guerrilla force that waged a relentless resistance against Imperial Japan in Manchuria between 1936 and 1945. The NAJUA, operating under extreme conditions in the frozen wilderness of northeastern China, engaged in hit-and-run tactics, sabotage, and ambushes against the occupying Japanese forces. Many of its members later played key roles in shaping post-war East Asia. Among them is a young Kim Il-sung, future leader of North Korea, seated second from the right in the first row, at the time holding the rank of captain. His wartime experiences and revolutionary image would later become a cornerstone of North Korean political mythology.